That's all right.
You're on.
Does this all this have to be put on the next agenda?
Yeah,
Yes.
at this point, unless Kanan shows up, what we'll do is we have to push the public hearings to the next agenda. I think the informals will have to be pushed to the next agenda. We'll try to make some progress with the informals. John has told us that we can't schedule a public hearing because we don't have a quorum to even schedule a public hearing for the items that are informal hearings if we were so disposed. So what we will do is discuss the informals. We will look at the referral from the town board on the Indian Brook Croton Gorge. We can't adopt the minutes, we don't have enough people for the minutes. So we will play planning board here instead of actually doing something, because we're just short of members. So bear with Jeff and I and me as we try to struggle through this. So our first item that we'll talk about tonight is the Kolev, 8 Cynthia Court. This is the application for a site development plan approval for the construction of an in-ground pool and patio with stormwater controls and relocation of the existing septic tank.
Hi, I'm Marianne Rivera from Landscape Concepts. The engineer was not able to come tonight, but he remitted all of his comments and everything back to you guys prior for the meeting's notes and everything, so I guess just to see where we're at, so we can proceed with
Yeah,
the
I don't know if you've seen the memos, but why don't we, maybe it would be helpful if we took comments from Sabrina, from Dennis, and from Bob on this, and give some guidance on this. There are some things that I know everyone's, there's a little bit of frustration on both sides here, so perhaps if we can clarify some of these things. I think, for example, Bob has supplied some sample forms to try to cut to the chase and enable you folks to not to have to reinvent the wheel, but use the forms that seem to work. And again, I'll say this at this point, I'll probably say it again later on, it probably would be very helpful if you got together with staff and just really sit down, spend a half hour, whatever, knock out the issues and get it done, because we're frustrated for you and we sense the frustration, but there's still some issues here that really have to be resolved. So Sabrina, do you wanna lead off with your comments?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really don't have very many comments. The applicant has addressed the coverage issues that I asked them to address, and it looks to be pretty clear. But there's one area, and that's the identification of the new clearing and grading limit line. We actually just need a single clearing and grading limit line that you're proposing right now that discloses the areas that you are disturbing. There's a combination of 3 different clearing and grading limit lines and shading reflecting your area of disturbance. But we actually need you to propose to the planning board a new clearing and grading limit line which takes out the areas you are disturbing.
So the engineer brought up that comment to me prior to the meeting, since he couldn't be here tonight, and I guess there was some confusion because in the past meetings, there's been one meeting that was asked that all the clearing and grading limit lines were listed on it.
Correct?
And then one meeting that said not to, and then the last one, he stated that the clearing and grading limit lines, all of them were supposed to be listed on it. That's why he included all of them in the set of plans that were submitted, so from what I'm looking at here,
we asked you to do that. We asked you to do that so the planning board could see the decisions that have been made in the past and where we end up today. But now that you've identified the areas you're disturbing, you have to put one final line on there, because that line will be filed as part of the deed associated with this property.
Okay, so if I'm looking at drawing number 1, which I currently have in front of me, he lists on there
Let me share that. Let me share it on the screen so everyone can look at it if you don't mind. Give me a second. Okay, hang on a minute. share my screen. Okay, which plan are you referring to?
So drawing number 1. I believe that's the one that you have right there in front of you.
Okay.
The engineer has listed a green line, which was the proposed June 2024 clearing and grading limit line. Then he shows on there the previously approved clearing and grading limit line from 2017 and the original approved clearing and grading limit line from the 2009 planning board approval. So he lists the original one from 2009, the one from 2017 that was revised when the house was final built, and then our proposed clearing and grading limit line that we're currently proposing for the project to install this pool.
So the proposed clearing and grading limit line is very difficult to see. What I see on this plan is the
I think
2007.
you're looking at it, it's actually a different one than what I'm looking at. Mine is stated as drawing number 1, and it has a green line, a red line, and a yellow line, so sorry.
Oh, can I, Sabrina, can I say something?
Yeah, please do.
I'm just gonna speak strictly from my draftsman point of view. I think Sabrina's point is when you make these lines, you gotta really differentiate in line type, line weight. And when you make it in color, that's great fun and dandy, but in all honesty, when you print it for the declaration, it's gonna be all in black and white. So you really have to be very clear and concise on the lines that were previously approved, the ones that were prior. I know there's 2 previous ones and there's a new one. Bottom line is the newest one that's Sabrina and the planning board agrees to should be the one that's the heaviest with the line type, so there's absolutely no confusion on which one is the new one.
Okay, so
But I also, but what I wanna say is if I look at the way that this new line is drawn, this is what we are looking at as the clearing and grading limit line, which makes no sense.
why does it make no sense?
Because look at the area in front of the house that you are saying is the clearing. You have things such as the pool within your area of the clearing and grading limit line.
Yeah, to me, you know what that looks like, Sabrina? That
Yeah,
looks like limits of disturbance for construction.
correct.
Yeah, that, their engineer really, that's why, to the chairman's point, we should really sit down with your engineer, Mr. Chairman, I believe. And I think if we meet, we can probably accomplish so much in that one meeting and probably clarify everything that Sabrina needs, everything that I need, everything that Dennis needs, because I think we just want to cut to the chase here and just get this done. But the chairman's point,
I mean, in the end of the day, that's what the owner wants too. They put a lot of money out in these sets of plans and all these meetings and everything that needs to be submitted. And if you have a format of say, okay, so basically what you're telling me right now is this, you only want our clearing and grading limit line of June 24th of what we're proposing. We can delete all these other lines from here, and that's final on that. We don't have to ever add them back in or anything in future meetings, correct?
Well, but
And
here's
what's your line, weight, and color that you would like for that to be?
No.
So I can be
Sorry.
directly specific to the
Sorry.
engineer, so.
sorry, Sabrina, but it's very confusing and we do it all the time, but we always like to see all 3 because that gives the historical significance of the whole thing. You just can't show the new one, then you don't know where the old ones were, so that's why a meeting to go over all the technicalities, when you sit down on the table, we can get out the highlighters, we can color away, I think it's gonna be much more productive. I don't know how much you really accomplished in a meeting like this, quite honestly. It's just my opinion, I don't know what the chairman thinks, I don't know what Sabrina thinks, but I think we can get a lot done just meeting in person.
Yeah, there seems to be a lack of understanding of what the clearing and grading, the new clearing and grading limit line should be in relation to the most recently approved clearing and grading limit line.
It seems like there's confusion all around of what you guys want with the engineer, and I understand your meeting and stuff like that, but I think if we do this meeting, you guys need to clarify and actually draw what you actually want, because.
And we're
We
happy
will.
to sit down and show you.
I'll do that.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'd love to.
so
We'll
we
do it.
basically just
We'll make
need to set a date with this, but it's getting to a little redundancy and whatnot of that I now need to spend another X amount of $1,000 to have this engineer
We
redraw clearing and grading limit lines, so I wanna see where this is gonna end at, because right now it's not ending for the owner of this property.
With all due
Guys,
respect.
I'm sorry, this is like so upsetting. We have to spend so much time, and I've sat through all these meetings, and I obviously don't know much about this, but it's like he changed everything that we've been asked. The engineer said that he spoke with you guys directly, that he's had communications, exactly what needed to be changed.
I never spoke with him.
And I did not speak with
He
him.
never called me up once.
He said
And
he spoke to you
have-
prior to the previous meeting that was supposed to be held, that we were supposed to be at, and you guys asked him to
No, we did
defer
not.
the meeting. I will get the notes that he emailed to me and send them over to you guys, but he said that you guys actually deferred the meeting, asked him to defer, so.
This is not making any progress here. Let's agree that there should be a meeting so that we can find out what has to be done. The staff has advised that they will assist, they'll even help draw the lines or draw the lines so that everyone knows exactly what we need to do. We understand the frustration at both ends. There's no point going back and forth who called, who didn't call, who emailed. And let's make that progress. Let's get that done in maybe the next week or so and sit down. Don't spend any more time or money on this. Bring these in so that we can mark up these.
So will you guys give me back the whole 13 sets of copies that we printed out so we can make the changes on there? Because the owner's incurring all of these expenses with 13 copies of everything.
You can have it back. I'm not so sure what it will look like. I mean, to Bob's point,
is,
I'm
so-
looking at, you guys are talking about color. To Bob's point, we have black and white.
Yeah.
We see no lines on here that are differentiated. So, I mean, to Bob's point,
Yeah, but they're listed as written there, and I mean, my version is in color, but he
Yeah.
puts it there blatantly
green,
into
yellow,
wording,
blue lines
so.
all appear the same. It's very, this is just one item. We have some other items I think that the engineer, and by the way, you'll see in these notes, we understand the frustration, but you'll see in these notes, they're not different. So we've completed a lot of stuff. You'll see in the engineer's notes, for example, you probably got 70-80% done. But I asked earlier this morning when I was talking with him, I said, are the items that are outstanding, are they still significant so that you would be comfortable with a conditional resolution? He said, no, some are so fundamental that we have to get it done. But he said, I'll do it for them, I'll draw it for them, I'll see how it'll be done. One of the other issues before we leave clearing and grading limit lines, and I know I've said this several times, we talked about the mitigation area. Where's the space or the area that is gonna be sort of the give back for the expansion of the clearing and grading limit lines? Not shown, not discussed. Now, we've asked that at every single one of the meetings and it hasn't been done. Again, maybe it was misunderstood, no problem, but again, meeting with staff, I think we can really make huge progress.
So,
I mean, we have,
no,
Jeff and I have better things to do anyway, but again, we don't wanna take,
we all have better things to do than
Exactly.
this, and it's come to a point, especially with the owner, that it's been a nitpicking of this property for years type of thing for them to get this pool installed, so it'd be nice to get this finalized so the owner can have their pool, and they're trying to do it above board and say, this is what I want and this is what we want done. They're not asking for anything that's crazy, and they've drawn a pool that's absolutely non-conforming so they can fit it into this special spot that they have,
Yep.
so they can enjoy it with their family. And it just keeps, everything is just compounding and compounding and compounding, and all these expenses that are attached to them is becoming outstanding for them, and now they're gonna have a $500,000 pool, and it's gonna be ridiculous because of all the engineering and drawings and everything that have been associated with it, so if we can actually be able to say, hey, we can take all these drawings back, we can put all these lines on them, because again, it's an expense. With every single one of these drawings, it's another expense for this owner. 13 copies is over $600 to have them printed at FedEx right now.
And I think
In-house and
what staff
everything,
is
so.
saying here is that, and I come from the development side, is please come in, sit down with us, they will hand mark up with you what they want to see. you'll take that back, you'll have another 13 sets of drawings, but those will be the ones that we're going to approve because they are going to have commented on them and done a favor to you versus going back and forth.
And I understand that, and that's what I wish my engineer was here, and he's not here tonight, so
I understand that, I'm just,
trying to make it all happen, and there's, as we go forward, there were some comments that the engineer did ask to have the declaration of what needed to be done, but then it was sent to him this prior, and he did send me those emails, I can forward them to you, where he asks for the declaration to use on the paperwork to be submitted. It was never sent to him until he got the submittance from Felicia to use this declaration. He submitted his own declaration type of thing, so it just needs to be saying, hey, this is your declaration, this is where your 9 lines need to be. Okay, you don't have to wait 2 weeks, you can come back on the 16th and submit everything. That's,
right, so
what
now
we
you have the
need to have.
declaration, right?
Yeah.
I mean, staff has given you the answer,
yeah,
right?
and I got that
whatever-
3 days ago,
Okay,
so
but you have it now.
I have
right?
it now, so just let me make these changes, we can come in next week, sit down and just say, okay, we have a meeting on the 16th, you can come back on the 16th, you don't have to wait another month to do this, and just submit everything as it is.
So
There has to be some give.
Well,
I-
with all due respect,
think
I mean, there's been a lot of give, and again, I don't wanna embarrass people, but if we go through this document and I look at 5 pages of items just on the engineer, never mind what Dennis, we haven't gotten to Dennis yet. And we haven't even finished up with Sabrina because we still haven't talked about the mitigation area, which still hasn't been addressed. I still haven't heard a word from you about that, and this has been 6 months of that. So aside from that, when you look at these, you'll see that so many of these items are completed, but they're still outstanding. Some are not, clearly not a big deal, they're administrative and we can handle them. But ST1 is important, and what the engineer has said, look, I'll even draw it for him, obviously the communication's not working, and this way we can get it done.
Alright, so let's cut to the chase, we'll get to the communication and then we'll get it submitted back. So that's all the owner's asking for, that's all that I'm asking for. So, and just to say, this is what our final set needs to be like, let's finalize this so we can proceed with whatever the next steps are, so.
Yep.
Okay, so let's talk next steps, so is
So
there?
let's talk about the clearing and grading limit lines, so we wanna make sure, I think the takeaway here on clearing and grading limit lines is we're not interested only in the disturbance lines for the construction, but the clearing and grading limit lines clearly marked, and we'll work on those. Number 2, in connection with clearing and grading limit lines, where is the area that the applicant's offering back for the expansion of the clearing and grading limit lines? We've suggested, because neighbors have done the same thing, and that is at the bottom of the hill, people have offered to, return some of that area outside and away from the septic fields area as is native, wild, replanted, etc. So
Okay,
we've offered, I know I have said that 2 or 3 times. So do that, it's not a big deal, we don't think. And again, we're trying to help you because we look for some sort of mitigation on it. It's not to prohibit, but it's and by the way, your neighbors have done it. So
okay,
it's not unusual, it's absolutely consistent with what we've done on this development. Sabrina, did I miss anything of yours? I'm sorry to have
No, you didn't miss anything of mine. I just wanna say, we work very hard to be accommodating to applicants so you're not bearing any undue expense by cause of the town. We have expressed time and again to meet with the engineer. We are happy to do so. If he can call our office and we can schedule him next week and we will put you on for the 16th, provided he can deliver what he needs to deliver, so we can carry you to the finish line.
okay,
I really would appreciate that because last time we sat, like honestly, that last time and I heard the same thing and it's been really, really, it's been hard on us, it really has, because this is something that my family and I have been trying to get for 3 years, and I know it seems insignificant, but
It is not insignificant.
and it's just, we're trying to do everything we can, and I'm at my wit's end, and I can't keep telling my kids, oh, we're getting a pool, and it's just every time it's something new, and I'm sorry, maybe I'm just a little emotional, but we are at this point, we'll do what it takes. You can see we're at every meeting. We really, we'll do what it takes.
And accompany your engineer to a meeting with the town, so you can hear the work that he needs to do to get you to the finish line.
Yeah, but can I say one thing too? You have these meetings, in my experience, we have many meetings like this over 31 years I've been here. You talk to people, you tell them what they have to do, they get it on the map, they think they understand what we said. But then what's gonna happen is if you come back to the planning board, there's still gonna be some tweaks, and you're gonna spend all that money and all that time before the board, and there's gonna be tweaks. Again, I recommend meet with us, have your engineer revise what he thinks we discussed, and hopefully everyone's on the same page. Send it back to us again, me, Dennis, Sabrina, we can redline it if it's on PDF and make those tweaks before you spend all this money to print these, to give them to the board, only to find out there's more changes. So it's gonna take a little bit extra time, but I think it's gonna save you money as well, so that's your decision to make. And that's what I see happens a lot, they're so in a rush to get on the next agenda, they don't send those plans to us in an interim fashion to see if they've addressed the comments that we had previously. So it's just a recommendation, it's just a suggestion, but I think it's gonna save some time before the board.
I would think if we sit down and have this meeting prior, we should be able to, as you said, you'd be able to give us all the comments and everything that would need it to be done, so the engineer is completely understood for what needs to go onto the plans and the changes that need to be made, as well as any line weights or anything that you guys require for the next set of drawings to be submitted. So,
So if I could just interject, everything we're talking about right now is desktop. So if we need to come up with some sort of give back area, I think that's something we should be boots on the ground, touchy-feely about, right? In terms of, okay, we're gonna, give back whatever, 8,800, whatever the number was, square feet to compensate for what we're, redesigning as the clearing and grading limit line. We should see what, we're in the middle, we're at the height of the growing season. This is the time where we could just identify what makes sense, what you wanna, we could talk in the field, because I know you have a botanical background, and we could just, sort of get to a point that if you submit something, it may not be perfect, but if you read my memo, granted, I didn't talk anything about mitigation, but the significance at the end of a memo, when a staff member can say, I have no objection that the planning board is so inclined to the above mentioned comments and recommendations being incorporated into the planning board resolution as conditions of approval, it means you don't have to come back here. And we can take care of everything through the resolution, and then as the process unfolds in terms of permits and, if that all works out, looking to apply for C of Os, this is when all of that would be resolved, so you wouldn't have to come back here to this climate controlled setting.
so basically there'd be two meetings. One, we need to have a meeting in the office, and then two, I need to have a meeting on site with you to discuss the area that you would want this give back for this expansion mitigation area.
Or what you're proposing, I'm not, I don't own the property, so I, don't wanna dictate. I try to help people, at least in the world of wetlands, sort of to identify what I think is potential candidate areas, may serve as a functional uplift, but, ultimately I've dealt with, well, I don't like that because, I'm like, okay, so, but again, to get over this clearing and grading give back hump, this is kind of what I'm proposing.
I guess in the end of the day, there's no sense for us to guess, so it's just okay, what would you like? And just tell us. Because if we keep guessing and we say, okay, we want this, you want that,
Right, so if I
we're
say
never gonna
like
get anywhere, so.
mangrove swamp with the Marine Mammal Rehabilitation Center, that obviously is not realistic, so that's why I'm saying you, on the ground, seeing what you have, I like to,
So let's plan a
To
meeting
work
that
with
we'll
it.
meet on site next week, and you can show us the area that you wanna have mitigated back, and we'll
we
go
could,
from
I think
there.
we walk it, I'm not,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a companion thing, I'm
Yeah,
not.
we're gonna discuss it on
direction.
site,
Perfect.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
There's gonna be a discussion on site for the mitigation area that needs to be the give back area.
Right, and it needs to, meet the size, so, some cursory measurements
Yeah.
and whatnot, but this all will have to be formalized at some point, so, okay.
Okay,
So you're set, Dennis, with your comments?
Yeah, I mean, I could probably, if they wanna review these comments and incorporate them into the next submission, that's fine, these are all just C mixes and.
Administrative
Yeah,
stuff and stuff that
yeah,
can work out,
right.
yeah, good. Bob, you had some comments, so you wanna run through some of your important ones?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the board. Basically, ST1 is incomplete still, they shows, they have to make a table, this table still is not clear. I mean, I put this in every one of my emails, it's still not clear about the increase in runoff volume for each storm event. I articulated it, I put it in green, I did work for them, I put the numbers right down here. All he's gotta do is make a table similar to the peak flows and put the runoff volume, and you should be done with that. It's ST1.
so basically, if you don't mind, we just go through it, so I just make sure I can convey all this information. So in ST1, you want a table on here saying in blue how you have the 218 CF plus or minus type of thing for the runoff values, correct?
That is correct, he can just put these numbers in there, I mean, he can check them, obviously, he's the design engineer stamping it. But I ran through the numbers as well, and I just want to let everyone know this has been in every one of my memos.
Okay.
ST19, basically, that's a standard, we have to get an NOI, for erosion and sedimentation, from the DEC.
But
That's not a
I'm
big
sorry,
deal.
we're just gonna go through, I'm just gonna go through as you go, so the ST19 is incomplete, but that's done once I have your approval that we go ahead, correct?
That is correct, that's signed off by me once the stormwater report has been satisfactorily completed. And those are the comments I'm giving you right now to get to that point.
Bob, did you have anything about ST15 or is that ministerial?
ST15 mentions that's I think that's a typo in there, that should be something that should be relatively simple to fix, ST15. Just references ST1. ST20 is probably my biggest concern, because right now, the way it's designed, the water really, the additional volume runoff, which is outlined in my ST1, 218, 479, 740, that's gonna go down the steep slope right over the on-site wastewater treatment system. That's always not a good thing to do, to introduce more runoff to those systems. So I pretty much either told them what to do as a recommended solution to the whole problem, is just to divert that water, go into the level spreader, have it go into the swale, which was put in by the previous developers years and years and years ago, and be done with it, and will not be going down the slope, it will not be going on the septic. I think it's an easy fix, he just has to show that on the plan as T1. GC2, we talked about quite a bit with the clearing and grading. I think when we meet with you, we can get that discussed much more. Maybe a little more clarifications on that, GC4 is pretty minor. Some of the notes have not been added to it, so those are minor, GC4. And that's all I have for now, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, very good.
Can I just clarify two things? So in the ST20, the incomplete, the declaration, that's what you sent over to him as how you want it to be stated in that new sample copy of the declaration form, correct?
That declaration is just a sample, he has to customize it.
Yeah, correct. It has to be customized for the owner and the property that it is, so, okay.
Yes, the maintenance has to be customized to the SMPs that he's designing.
Okay. So in reality, our biggest two hiccups are the mitigation area and the listing of the clearing and graded limit lines in a way. Cause the rest is in reality site plan stuff and paperwork that I see. Or am I off?
I wouldn't want to characterize it myself, but it sounds pretty reasonable what you said.
So, okay. And then basically what we'd be looking at is if we can meet with you guys, we can possibly get into the July 16th meeting to get this stuff resubmitted for, if it's all possible.
What does July 16 look like? Or it also be, it's a short week, obviously, so it's a work week. I wanna remind the applicant at some point, we can't do it this evening. But at that meeting, the next administrative step is we have to go to a public hearing.
Correct.
So I mean, there's probably 2 more meetings.
We only have one thing on that week.
Oh, okay.
We,
So if you guys can really get together and earlier in the week is better and meet, we should be able to fit you on.
Okay.
We might even show up. Alright,
okay,
so
I will be in
Any comments?
touch with
Questions,
you
Jeff?
guys tomorrow.
I
Dick,
think
any-
the suggestion of meeting with them is you should be able to iron out everything at that point.
Dick, any thoughts, comments, questions? I don't know, am I muted?
Dave, do you have any comments?
No, I mean, it's as said.
Okay,
You know, it's, sometimes people get annoyed with little things they think that don't really mean anything, but they do if the same problem exists and it's a bigger scale issue. So we have to be consistent in how we put things together.
do you want these back?
I mean, if you can pick
They're not
them
gonna
to
do me
Felicia and I
any
can
good
pick
at
them
home.
up from her, but if it's, you know,
If you can
I
use
can
them-
save my client any money on this process, it's always awesome,
Well,
so.
if you can
But I
use
don't know if it can be reused but we can see.
I mean, they're gonna hand
We'll be
mark up,
changing it, so I
yeah,
mean,
Yeah.
it'll be used as a fly swatter at home,
Yeah,
it's okay,
so
but
we can go from there,
alright.
okay?
Okay, good, thank you so much.
maybe we can only,
Thank you.
we can only submit the plans interchange, so
Yeah.
that'll save a couple.
Yep.
Couple checks.
Yeah, talk to staff on this perhaps, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I'd say, one thing, if you just wanna submit the plans that change versus the whole plan set, I mean, I know there's 6 plans, but if you only change one,
Okay.
if staff is okay with that, just submit that one, we keep this stuff.
And if the stormwater management and all that, there's no changes in anything to it, those don't all need to be resubmitted, it's only the pages and everything
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
are
the
any
pages
changes
that are
that
changing, I
need to be
guess,
made.
yeah.
Okay.
You know, again, work it with staff and I think, you know, we can work on something that's moderately economical for you.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, great,
Great.
thank you
Okay,
guys.
thanks. Okay, our next item is the Schwartz 6 Breckenridge Road. This is an application for a site development approval, application for stormwater management and erosion and sedimentation control, and a tree permit for removal of an existing half basketball court, expansion of driveway, and planting of trees.
Good evening, Jacqueline Collins, associate at Zarin and Simons. I'm going to turn it over to Brad Schwartz, who's online, who's on Zoom right now, to kick it off for us.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, members of the board and staff, and thank you, Jacqueline. I had another conflict tonight, so I'm taking this Zoom from another town hall. So good to see you all. So Jacqueline,
Many of us, but it's good to see you. It's good to be seen by a few anyway.
yeah. So Jacqueline, Alan Phillips is there, and Steve is also online with us. So, Mr. Chairman, before turning it over to Alan, I'm here tonight, I just wanted to give a little context, right? Paul, who, by the way, no relation, has been at this for about over a year. We were evaluating internally, we were talking to staff, talking even to the neighbor for quite some time, and looking for a path to potentially legalize the existing court, right, in its current location. And we realized that what was ultimately best for everyone would be to abandon it and simply make some modest improvements to the driveway to accommodate a new basketball hoop, which at the end of the day, that's what this is really all about for Paul in terms of a new hoop to accommodate a play area for his kids to shoot some hoops. We understand the significance of the violation. We know we're here to remedy a violation. We heard your board's comments loud and clear at the last meeting, and we believe we've done everything your board has asked in terms of on-site tree replacement. There's no off-site mitigation, there's no payment in lieu of replacement. So we believe we've addressed all the comments. No new stormwater is required because ultimately there's a net decrease in impervious surface. And Alan will walk the board through the plan. We understand you can't take any action tonight or schedule a public hearing, but we certainly hope here's some positive feedback based upon the most recent submittal.
Okay, thank you very much.
Alan, if you want, would you please walk through the changes that were made since the last meeting?
Sure, good evening, Alan Pilch, ALP Engineering. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Perhaps I can just go through the plan changes that were done. I don't know if we can put that on the screen, is that possible?
I can do it.
Well, I always ask you for technical things like that, you know that.
I don't know, just give me a minute, I have to get your plan.
That's okay. Well, I can start if you like. So the revised site plan, the site mitigation plan, does provide 100% of the required tree replacement on the site. As we noted, that's fine, you can just zoom out a little bit. Based on the calculations that we did in accordance with section, the first sheet, that's all stated, thank you. 121-6, there were a total of 35 trees that had to be replaced with a mix of overstory trees, understory trees, and shrubs is what we've done. This plan that we're submitting here actually has 31 trees to be planted and 32 shrubs to make the mandatory 35 trees, because 8 shrubs equals 1 tree. So mathematically, that's how it works. Of the 31 trees to be planted, 7 are understory trees, and the remaining 24 are overstory or canopy trees. All the plantings are native and are commonly grown in the area. Tree plantings include red and sugar maple, tupelo, white and red oak. Understory trees include eastern redbud, flowering dogwood, and witch hazel. The plantings, what we heard from the board at the last meeting was that you wanted us to recreate that naturalistic wooded area that was present in the western portion of the site. We believe we have done that. The plantings are primarily on the western side and on the southern end of the property, and it includes as a result, what you'll have is the continuum, because on the left side is the Alexander's property, which is at the edge of what you see there on that drawing is wooded, and so then that wooded area continues onto the property. You can see the basketball court there on the left-hand side. That rectangle is going to be removed, and so that continuum basically will be from the Alexander's property and into this property. And there's also a lot of supplemental plantings on the south end or the bottom of the drawing as well, which will and on the neighboring property to the south is also wooded at that location. So what it does is supplement and will sort of provide that continuum, the word I'll use, for the wooded area in the western and southern portion of the property. The plan does also provide 2 trees on the Alexander's property, which kind of fills in a little bit for the removals that had occurred there, but there already are some existing trees there, and that sort of helps fill in some of that continuum. The plan also provides for the planting of 3 evergreen trees along the western side of the property to screen the view of the expanded driveway from the Alexander's property. Is something that they had mentioned to us that they would like to have occur. And I'll just say the mix of the native trees and shrubs will replace the functions served by the former trees and have a positive environmental and aesthetic impact. I just want to note a couple other things. The project does propose the removal of the basketball court. The pavement area of the former basketball court will be, it's going to be removed, topsoil brought in. The area of that former basketball court will be replanted with native trees and shrubs, and nearest to the house will be stabilized with lawn. The removal of the basketball court will remove the impervious surfaces on the property by 1,646 square feet. The construction of the driveway expansion will add a net amount of 595 square feet of new impervious surfaces. But the calculation that calculation excludes the removal of the half basketball court. So if I take out the half basketball court in its entirety and just look at the area of the driveway that's to be expanded, that net amount is 595 square feet. In accordance with local law number 5 of 2024, the property being in the R2 and actually the R1 zoning district is well below the threshold of 1,000 square feet that would require the preparation of a SWIP. And I'll just say finally, the project is in conformance with the building and development coverage requirements. And so, how about the comments? I do hope that we've addressed the comments. I know the board was very anxious. And as Brad also mentioned, of course, there's no tree fund,
There's no what?
no tree fund contribution
Right.
as well, because all 35 trees are being incorporated into the plan.
Okay, thank you. Sabrina, you had some thoughts and comments?
Mr. Chairman, I really don't have any comments on this. It's all in conformance with coverage requirements as Alan has stated, and all of the comments that I had have been addressed. The only comment which I'm going to defer to Dennis is to ensure that the mitigation is addressed.
Okay, good. Dennis, you had some thoughts?
Okay. Yes, so, and again, maybe I'm just misunderstanding, the conflation of all this is what's confusing me, even though I know that, we're before for a single application. That's why my memorandum tried to sort of break this down, because I know that there was direction for restoration, not just tree replanting, and I think that, my memo pretty much summarizes that I felt like that was accomplished, at least with respect to the woody component. Sort of as like what's depicted in the aerial that I provided, I did that for the reasons of that, it shows that you're being contiguous with the woodlands that, weren't disturbed. So I just, wanted to make the final comment, since I don't know what the ground cover was going to be. That was the only thing that just seemed to be lacking in terms of sort of closing that avenue in terms of, satisfying the restoration and simultaneously chapter 121 with respect to the trees. But really, to return that's why I use the term like reclamation. It's kind of, you're asking to return to something. As a result of doing the tree removal work, it's not like the basketball court was unearthed. If it was, then I could see where credit should be given to remove that. But since you sort of created your own mitigation by saying we can advance this project, that's why I went down the road of trying to come up with another avenue that I think would be an improvement to the property, because there's the septic and there's all the plantings that are already there to sort of accommodate the violation and the restoration. I honestly don't think, in the spirit of mitigation, that more planting would accommodate that. But since the avenue of water quality improvement for the impervious was an opportunity that had nothing to do with plantings, that's why I had offered that as a potential alternative that would sort of separate itself from the reclamation and the violation and be sort of a reset to say, okay, and by the way, we want to apply for this in conformance with the town codes, and this is how we want to mitigate for this particular impact. Otherwise, my analogy is more wetlands related, but if you fill the wetland of X size and then you got a violation, if you were to propose a project of Y size that's smaller than the X filling, you're gonna get mitigation for removing your fill. That's where my head's at for all this. So that's why I kind of tried to lay out my memo the way I did and tried to bifurcate the projects as I saw fit.
If I understand your point, Dennis, is it that, look, we have a violation here, and removal of 1,453 square feet of impervious surface from the basketball court, that was the violation. Removing that should not be given, you should be given credit for that to offset the other 590 that you're looking for, because it was a violation, and what we're, That's really not a mitigation thing, that's curing a problem.
And again, I may be insensitive to this because my whole career has been based with state and federal permitting, so, to be fair, you wouldn't even get to the table if that was your offer, but, I understand this is different, so if my thinking is so off relative to how, things typically go or have gone in the past, then that's another argument, but in terms of my interpretation, I don't know how I would get my head around all of this to, sort of make it all count just in one shot.
I see what you, I think I understand what, if I understand what you're saying, I think I understand what you're saying. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that was the thrust of your talk in terms of the conflation of those two issues.
Right.
You really, if you have any, and it doesn't matter what we have, if you have a situation where there's a violation, curing the violation is not, that's curing the violation. And then if you have an application for something else, that stands on its own in terms of, and you don't get credit for taking away the violation and then moving on to the next item. So it's not a net reduction of impervious surface here that we're dealing with. It's really, the bottom line is, it's an application for expansion of impervious surface 590 feet for the expansion of the basketball court, which may be perfectly fine, but we need to look at that and consider it that way.
That would work, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, we're perfectly fine evaluating this through that prism, right? We're not trying to sort of double dip, which is kind of what I'm hearing. We think the driveway improvement with the basketball hoop stands on its own as not causing an impact that requires any mitigation. So we're not trying to, like I said, double dip and take credit twice. We wanna remediate the violation, and then yes, ask the additional 500 and change of additional impervious.
I think what I'm also hearing from Dennis, and Dennis correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's looking for a situation where we are, reclamation, restoration, whatever the word is that you want to talk about, trying to, as best as possible, restore the conditions that we had before. And I think, what that means is, for example, even with stormwater, there was a condition before the basketball court was built, there was a condition after the basketball court was built, and then there will be a condition after the basketball court is pulled up and your proposal for lawn area and plantings should be looked at. And it seems to me that that's part of what Dennis is recommending here, is that we really need that three-part information to know exactly what we have here in terms of that restoration effort. Because we really shouldn't be taking a look solely at when the basketball court was there, because that was already the violation. It's impossible to really, I guess, at this point, identify exactly what was there before, but I think you guys have done a very good, fair and reasonable job in terms of trying to identify the number of trees and where they were, and I applaud your efforts in doing that. That's terrific, thank you. But that being said, I think that's and what I think we'll hear from the town engineer is what we would wanna see as part of the restoration here, because putting the trees up, they'll be great in 10 or 15 years, but it's not gonna be the restoration or the condition that we saw before they were cut, before the basketball court was put there. And it's not a matter of trying to be, trying to create a penalty here, but we're really trying best to understand where it was, what happened after, and what we propose to do now. So Dennis or Bob, can you maybe articulate that more
It's a good segue, Bob.
intelligently? What's that?
It's a good segue for Bob at this point, stormwater.
Well, I think let's not lose sight of the fact that Dennis was getting to, trying to make a point of that before that court was put in, there was woods there was trees there was a lot more mitigation already built in prior to the pre-existing conditions. That court should not even look like it was even built. So my point is, if we're gonna be doing stormwater for what Dennis wants, water quality, this is what Alan, you have to do a pre and post, and a pre is gonna be based on the wooded conditions of that whole site before the court was put there. And there was pretty substantial tree cover there. So that curve number could be quite high, 58, speaking Alan's lingo right now. And you're gonna have to put in what's there now, 61, and this is very similar to Laminy. I remember Laminy wanted to use all the vegetation, all the beautiful plantings, and all the trees that were gonna be put in and put a very high curve number very low curb, but he says, no, these plantings are gonna take years and years and years and years to grow. So let's assume for the next 3 or 4 years, that's gonna be all like lawn. So my point is to this conversation, the preconditions gotta be what it was beforehand, with all wooded. Now, the new conditions are gonna be with the lawn, and the planning board, that's my dog barking, sorry about that. Now, the planning board, if they decide to let you put in the asphalt, that's gonna be taken into account and put in the mix. So that's gonna be pre and post conditions for the whole stormwater report, which will not only take into account water quality volume, but the runoff volume as well.
By the way, Alan, quick thing, I presume you have permission to put those 2 trees in, right, with the neighbor's property?
I know it's been discussed.
Okay, I think we would wanna have some sort of nudges from.
The only thing I'll say is that, you know, if that court wasn't there in the first place, and this applicant came in and just said, I want to expand my driveway.
Mhm.
And the total of the expansion is 590 square feet. In accordance with the town regulations, it would not require a SWIP, would not require treatment of the water quality volume, peak rate attenuation or anything. There are many projects in this town where that has occurred. I understand there's a violation that had occurred, but if we separate the violation entirely, and just imagine this property owner coming in and saying, I wanna just come in and expand my parking lot, I want a place for my kids to play. And he came in with 590 square feet of impervious surface in an R2 district zone, you would say that doesn't meet the most recent local law, number 5 for 2024. That's all I wanna make sure that's understood. Now, there may be some subtle differences in the amount of runoff, but a lot of that area was, tangled brush and, not necessarily trees, but it was very messy back there. That's what it looked like previously. And, that so-called, area did not extend right over to the house. It did not do that. So when you look at the aerials, that's what you'll see. So I don't think the amount of change of runoff would actually be that significant, the term I use. So it's not like, you took a site which was, the entire western half of the site was wooded and now it will not be. It wasn't that way.
So let's say that does then become the outcome, is it a mitigationless property that can now no longer expand because the reclamation of the forest is the reclamation of the forest to cure the violation? See, I tried to create a situation where you weren't mitigationless, and that's my concern now.
I understand, but if you came out with a site
Dennis,
plan.
what's the impact from the driveway and the festival that we need to mitigate? That's why I hear what you're asking for, but to Alan's point, I'm not sure what we need to mitigate
Right,
from
so
the
also to Alan's
driveway.
point, if you came in just for the driveway, then
Yeah.
the assumption would be that the trees would still be in the backyard all standing, and that was unimpacted. Like, we're trying to parse something out on a parcel. Again, if in trying to, sort of fulfill the obligation of mitigation, I mean, if there's a determination that, look, this property has an ask and we just can't mitigate, could we just get the ask? Then that's where we're at. But, I didn't think we were there, so that's why I was trying to find another avenue where I still think that you're doing something good for the neighborhood, the area, the environment, and that's why I just mentioned the water quality as an option. Because I don't see where more plantings are gonna work, especially with where the septic is located and and you're already putting in a fair amount of plantings just to satisfy the tree violation.
Dennis,
Stephen, do you wanna speak to the viability of the tree
can I speak for a second?
Hang on, Brad, let's
Right,
Jeff
can I
has
speak
a
for a second?
question.
I'm sorry.
I'm trying to bifurcate this between the violation and the court, right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at S100, where it has the basketball court, there's one tree that's right on the corner, but the basketball court, maybe during the construction, they had to take down some of these trees, but some of the trees that they took down are nowhere near the basketball court. But they did it, there was a violation, they put a basketball court in. And then according to the memo, there are 16 trees that need to be replaced and we're making them replace, but 35 trees worth of stuff there. So there is when you fill a wetland, it's not 1-to-1, it's 1-to-2, so in this instance, we're making it 1-to-2+ for them to replacement. So that, unless if I'm seeing this wrong, while currently when you plant those trees, it's not going to be a perfect 18-inch oak and whatever it may be, but they are planting more than what they removed and trying to cure the violation on there. And then we bifurcate and we go to the new basketball court, but also I did see something, and just looking at this plan, I mean, I don't think I could back my F-150 out of the garage, right? For would be better for turning radius for their vehicles. So if they've cured the violation, and then now if they are correct in their logic as far as that they don't need to do the SWIP or anything like that, I think we do need to look at these a little bit of a bifurcated scenario,
No,
right?
I agree, and so if there is no mitigation then for the expansion of the driveway, then that's fine, then there's none. I'm not, see, the last meeting, you're doing more than replacement, you were asked for restoration, so this is more than just accounting. That's why I put a different hat on for this, that was,
Right.
yeah.
And I don't think they did themselves any favors coming here with an invoice that said they removed 31 plus trees, when in reality, it looks like 4 of them had fallen or were hazardous, and we signed off, or they claim that you signed off on it. So in reality, like quite frankly, after last meeting, I thought the whole forest is where the basketball court was, and they ripped that out to put a basketball court. Yeah, there should be penalties for that, but here it looks like the basketball court was put, whether they removed 4 trees, 6 trees, 16 trees, that basketball court would not have removed any, where they put it, it didn't remove any trees. Just my
Well,
2 cents.
I don't think we can make the statement it didn't remove any, but it's clear it was not
It wa-
16 or 20 trees
Yeah.
back there.
And the trees weren't where, like, they didn't remove a tree to, where there's asphalt now, there wasn't, according to this plan, there wasn't a tree in the past.
But to Dennis's point, the other issue is whatever the number is, we don't know what
Yeah.
that number is there. In addition, the site was prepared for a basketball court, which means it was
Right,
excavated.
you didn't helicopter in a rectangular plan and be able to drop it, but this is, I say that because this is how my mind has to work with respect to impact and restore, it's not two-dimensional.
Right, I'm looking at, they came in here, they've never put a basketball court, they wanna widen it, right? How will we treat them? And at least in my mind, we should treat them like anybody else, but then for the violation, that's a different story, right? And if if their mitigation or restoration, whatever they're proposing is acceptable to us, then, right, I don't see a need to increase the mitigation from the violation, but
That's fine, I'm just saying that I don't think there's opportunity in terms of revegetating and replanting to count as mitigation. But if you don't wanna advance anything with respect to the expansion of the driveway, I'm fine with that, I'm just trying to sort of, not only address this, but there's a model here going forward that I don't want to be
Right.
constructed, so a little of everything.
If I could add just a couple of comments, when I was first at the site, looking at the wooded area, the understory was very sparse, primarily because of the canopy of the trees that were remaining, and also the fact that there's a lot of deer browse in the neighborhood as well. So a simple solution is there was not an extensive ground cover of grasses and flowering plants or anything like that. It was mostly a mix of ornamental grasses that were partly lawn, that was just not maintained. So a simple solution from a restoration standpoint is, we looked at adding the trees and a shrub layer where we could. A simple thing would be where the basketball court is, if you're concerned about that area, is we could introduce, a native ground cover in that area, which would improve water quality. Eliminate, the lawn in that area and change it to, more of a, native grass, that, would filter and trap, nutrients, from any potential runoff.
So, sorry. So, okay, so that would address.
I just don't see it being a significant, difference from, yes, they put in they excavated and put in a pad, but
Right.
at the end of the day, the quantity of trees and shrubs that are going in, and even if it was lawn put back in, is going to provide a significant filter for that area.
Right, but, it's not wood floor. Like, I understand that it may not have been a robust herb layer, but again, you were asked for sort of a restoration, so I'm looking more towards like ecology. I'm not looking for this mix and match of mowed lawn with trees or whatnot. And again, you guys provided that, so that's why I was okay with that. And I said, yeah, that satisfies 121 and that's the restoration. Now the court comes up, fine. It's still within the zone of what you guys are restoring. Now you have an ask for the driveway. I don't see where you're able to get additional credit for that. Again, just through the mechanism of planting. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that you can't do it, but it's just not registering in my head in terms of, trying to reclaim this at some level of a wooded community. That was all.
If, this is for, I guess, Alan and for Bob. Assuming somehow, some way, there is some sort of delta that is determined, from what the start was, what the in-between was, and what the final version, approved version is, with an expanded driveway. Assuming the worst, I don't know how bad that worst would be, if anything, but assuming whatever that might be, what would be the steps that we would take to just mitigate that? I mean, can we make certain assumptions and say, in a worst case scenario, we might have to put I don't know what, some sort of Coltec thing, or just more plantings, as Steve is suggesting in some other areas. It seems to me perhaps we can, do this in a way that makes more sense, and maybe it's a little bit more economic for the client, and say, what's the worst case scenario if we look at this, whatever the deltas are on these water quality and stormwater runoffs. Okay, so what? And what is the so what? What's the delta? And what will we do about that? And I presume most of it would be coming from the basketball court, but to Alan's point, if it were a basketball court, we'd look at it and do whatever we would do, and that would be it. So
I still think if you do an academic exercise, and it'd be not a big deal to do, like we discussed before, to use the pre for that wooded area, and it's gonna have a higher curve number, a lower curve number. Alan could agree with that. Well, Alan and I would have to agree on a curve number. That's gonna be the precondition. And then you put back the lawn, which is all lawn now, which is a 61, if it's a B soil. And add in the driveway extension, if the planning board allows it. And I would almost guarantee, Alan could attest to this and chime in anytime you want, Alan, you're the expert as well on this, that there's gonna be some delta there. Now, that delta could be easily picked up in and around the new impervious area for the driveway. That can go into a catch basin, it can go into a trench drain, something go into some dry wells, as long as it meets separation distances with septic. But I think it's an easy academic exercise to do, to the chairman's point.
So it might also be an easy solution in the field as well to get the site to what we would want it to be at and be done with this.
Oh yeah, I remember. I think it was on a different plan. Is that a rock ledge between you and the neighbor? I could have sworn on your last survey it said rock ledge.
Yeah, there was some,
So like, what's the depth of rock out there?
but, I'll just say, we did do, deep hole percolation tests further in the northwest corner of that property. They were all witnessed by the town. That was done.
Well, of course, that would have to be done to see. But in what recently, I've had over the past couple of years, more and more people have been using rain gardens doesn't need the full depth as storm text do.
Not easy.
So there's a way to possibly
Maybe
mitigate that as
drywall
well.
and bedrock.
Yeah, as I pointed out, this was just an application for just the expansion of the parking area to make it maneuverable, because it isn't now. I know when I drove there the first time, it's like, I'm not coming down here. You know, I don't need to damage my car the first time I drive in here. You know, if it was just that application, it would, you know, it would not require stormwater mitigation. I don't know what that would do for the naturalistic, you know, standpoint that you're looking for either. I don't think that would.
Yeah,
Right,
but,
it's part not, oh, sorry.
yeah, but one of the issues that we talked about last time was it's a violation, but it was also a violation in a conservation subdivision, which has got a, you know, special heightened level in terms of our rules and regulations here. But again, not to, you know, drown everyone with work, but it seems to me that if we can get some sort of agreement between you and Bob and what that delta might mean, and then if we, you know, come in with a plan that's got a rain garden or whatever the solution might be to take up whatever that delta might be, it seems to me that we have a reasonable application and a reasonable resolution of the problem, the violation. I mean,
Mr. Chairman, can I just please,
Sure, go ahead, Bryce.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask Steve a quick question? Steve, if I heard you correctly, you mentioned a different type of grass could be a possible solution to address this? I just wanted to understand your comment earlier.
But, you know, the question I have is because it's under the threshold for regulating stormwater, why couldn't we just let it dissipate through the natural vegetation that is there? You know, it could be pitched so that, you know, the lawn area, you know, and you can also modify the lawn grasses to be other, you know, species or mix of species that are native that would filter any water that's coming from that area.
That makes sense, Stephen. I agree
We're
with
certain
that.
grass mix, Stephen, that is.
We're not talking about a huge volume here, you know, and it's gonna be stable, so I mean, it's like a rain event. You know, the water's gonna just filter through the lawn. I mean, I think we're overcomplicating a very minor amount of disturbance.
Well, I think we should see what the number is, to the chairman's point. I mean, we can all speculate that till the cows come home. But until you run the numbers, you're not gonna know what the numbers are. So,
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, you know,
Based on the numbers, it sounded like you may just thought that Stephen's idea has some traction.
No,
Yeah, but the New York State Erosion Manual has different conservation seed mixes that could work very well, and that's what they're designed for.
Well,
Just to filter any runoff that occurs, you know, from just normal, whether it's, you know, roof leaders or, you know, driveway areas. I mean, it's used all the time to filter it. I mean, I don't think we need a complicated rain garden.
No, that's a good idea,
Especially when it's under the 1,000 square foot, you know, threshold.
yeah, but the planning board, as you know, guys, I let the attorneys know, and they have the discretion to require stormwater no matter what. Doesn't have to be the threshold in chapter 1AA. But I like Stephen's idea, because you can do pre, like we just discussed, you can do the post on what's there now, and as the mitigation could be the seed mix that Stephen's recommending, and that would decrease the curb number, which might help the whole thing, and you may not need any post stormwater construction. So I think Stephen's idea is a good idea.
Mr. Chairman, we'll look into this.
Yep, I think you have some solutions, no matter what. I don't think that the delta is gonna be very significant.
Yeah.
Between Alan and Stephen and Bob, I think a reasonable solution can be developed here. And take care of it.
So looking ahead, assuming that we are going to resolve this in due course, like early next week, can we please be on for July 16th to schedule the hearing for September? You know there's no August meeting,
Right.
and we would like to advance things.
So you wanna come here July 16th?
So if you're looking to get that fast, hold on. So in other words, your herbaceous proposal is to the entire restoration area is gonna be seeded with this mix, correct? Like we're talking the herb layer also? It's not a big deal, I'm serving the ball. What do you guys wanna do? I had a comment in my memo about herb layer. You guys just proposed, you know, a potential with respect to stormwater if that's also gonna be a beneficial herb layer for the entire restoration area, you're gonna commit to that as well?
I
I'm
think
still in
that is
two
what
different
it's looking-
camps, that's why I'm trying to make this work.
Yeah, I think rather than engineering this on the fly, I wanna have a chance to talk to Steve, unless you're ready to jump in now, I think let's look at this.
Well, I think we also need to go back to, the client to,
Exactly.
make sure that he's comfortable with the mix. I mean, the lawn areas he has are used by their kids, so, it has to be a mix that is, compatible for that purpose too. And there's several in the New York State manual that I think could accommodate.
Right, and
I
that's
guess what I'm
the
asking
that's not
is-
on the table, so just remember that.
Dennis, sorry to interrupt you there for a second. I'm asking you to assume, Dennis, that we'll work this out, right? We'll, as Steven said, let's give us a chance to talk internally, talk to our client. Assume that with our folks and you, Bob and Sabrina, will work this out in the next couple of days. And we're asking to be, again, Mr. Chairman, to be placed on the agenda for the 16th for the purposes of scheduling a hearing in September. And frankly, the discussion can continue leading up to the public hearing. Nothing's gonna be decided over the next month or two.
Will that work, scheduling? Okay. Yep, we don't have to do any notice, so it's okay.
And look, and Mr. Chairman, one more ask, given again the August meeting and tonight, assuming we work this out and it's acceptable to staff, on July 16th, we would also ask that a resolution be prepared and ready for consideration on September 10th, following the close of the public hearing.
Yeah, if the
So-
schedule permits, that will, I think we'll do that, yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
That way Paul can.
Be sure to remind me on July 16th though.
Thank you, everyone. I just want to say thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Happy 4th.
Yes, happy 4th. So we'll see you on the 16th.
Happy 4th.
Happy 4th.
Good. Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.
So Sabrina, we have the referral from the town board regarding.
I have two questions.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I assume that the sanitary disposal field is old, right? It's not brand new? Because if it's brand new, then I'm curious as to what spacing before you hit a neighbor's line are you supposed to have when you have the piping close to the boundary line? It looks like 20 feet. Is that enough?
There are no stormwater pipes in the location of that septic system. There are no stormwater pipes in the location of the septic system that are there. I mean, her closed conduit is 25 feet. That's what's required in accordance with the Westchester County regulations.
No, it's not 25 feet away from the
Well,
border.
the trees that are shown there are the minimum 10 feet from the septic system. I was quite cognizant of where it was based on the plan that Bob Cioli had provided to me. And I looked at the plan, I could figure out very well where the 100% expansion area is as well. And we'll figure out what we do with regard to mitigation and where it'll be located. That if the mitigation were over, it's not gonna be over a septic field, but it could be. But we'll find locations for it. But we are not talking about doing any stormwater conduits in a location near that septic system, which is in the southeast corner of that property.
Well, so if somebody can check it out and confirm it, then that's that.
Sure.
Second, really minor detail. Repaving the driveway with bituminous concrete. How about repaving, with macadam? So no one gets confused as to, do they have to go get a cement machine or what?
That's fine, we'll provide the detail.
That's on the map.
Yeah, okay, we'll provide the detail to specify exactly how the driveway will be repaved, the term I use.
Is hot mix asphalt be a better terminology maybe, Alan?
Perhaps, I think that's a common term that's used. Macadam, I always think is a very sort of ancient term.
Yeah.
That was the name of the gentleman who invented it many years ago.
That's what I was thinking too.
You're a rich Scotsman.
That's correct.
Probably the last one too, let's not go down there.
Okay, good,
All right, thank you.
thank you. All right, Sabrina, you have, you'll help us a little bit here with the Indian Point Croton Gorge Intermunicipal Watershed. The proposal for a law action is the adoption for a watershed protection overlay zone for the Indian Brook Croton Gorge watershed.
Yes, it's the Indian Brook Gorge Watershed Overlay Protection District. Several town boards ago, the town was asked to coordinate with the other municipalities in the Indian Brook watershed to create an overlay protection district that would protect the drinking water supply for the village town of Ossining and Croton-on-Hudson. The project involves the overlay district, involves the town of Cortland, town of Newcastle, the village and town of Ossining, and Croton-on-Hudson. The town of Newcastle and Cortland form the headwaters of the Indian Brook and the Croton Gorge watersheds. And the intention was to bring land use regulations up to the same protectiveness, if you will. The town of Newcastle was seen as a leader in this because of our stringent environmental requirements, our protectiveness, particularly with our environmental overlay that we have in that part of town, as well as our coverage requirements that we require for residential land uses. The land area of the town of Newcastle in this watershed is all single-family residential, and it's mostly zoned R2 acres. Most of the properties have more than 2 acres. The overlay, I can run through it real quickly. There's minor changes to our codes. There's a list of definitions in this overlay protection zone that are not included in our current town code. We define some of them, we don't define all of them, so there'll be new definitions added to our code. For example, a drinking water well is not identified, fertilizer is not defined, large-scale solar collector or solar farm is not defined. So the definitions in this overlay protection district will be added to our code if the town board adopts this overlay district. I'm going to highlight some of the differences. There's only a handful of them. Our code is very stringent as it stands, and if it's not outright said, the planning board enacts very protective measures in your land use decisions regarding subdivisions and site plans in the community. One of the biggest differences is that the overlay district is saying that all new subdivisions of 4 lots or greater shall be considered conservation subdivisions, and there is a required 30% of the parcel to be permanently preserved. The planning board has been the authority in regards to conservation subdivisions, and in most every application for subdivision of 2 lots or greater, and even sometimes with 2 lots, you all try and force them to be smarter about their planning and to create more conservation-oriented subdivisions. This will make it a requirement for anything 4 lots or greater. And we'll have to do some calculations as to the percentage of land preserved. So that's not different in practice, because the planning board has always done that and will continue to do that, but it is different. The difference is that it will be codified for this area of the community. And there are about, I want to say 200 parcels in our area of the watershed. Another another change, they're all kind of minor, is in relation to construction activities that involve soil disturbance of greater than 5,000 square feet. In the overlay protection district, they're asking that erosion and sediment controls in accordance with this New York State DEC are employed for any land disturbance of 5,000 square feet or greater. This particular provision is taken straight out of the East of Hudson watershed provisions, where the town currently enacts this requirement, but only in the East of Hudson watershed. So now, if the town board adopts this overlay protection district, we will enact that same requirement in the Indian Brook watershed. The next change is regarding septic systems. The new MS4 permit actually requires the town to ensure that septic systems within the East of Hudson watershed are pumped once every 5 years. In the Indian Brook watershed, this overlay protection district is asking that septic systems be pumped every 3 years. We don't have any regulations right now in our books that require this. We are required to require it through the MS4 permit for the East of Hudson watershed, and now the town board is being asked to require it for every 3 years in the Indian Brook watershed. Lawn chemicals shall not be applied within 25 linear feet of any water course or within a wellhead buffer area. We do not have any wellhead buffer areas in Newcastle, but our town code is less stringent. We don't prohibit this within a wetland buffer per chapter 137. So that's a change. A lot of people are surprised to find that out because we do have pretty advanced protections, but we do not limit lawn chemicals in our buffer areas. The next change is regarding mitigation, there's specific buffer vegetation requirements. Elements like planting within the buffer shall be based on site-specific planting plans designed to intercept stormwater, stabilize banks, improve water quality, diverse mix of perennial native species, trees and shrubs with dense ground cover is required. So there's a specific prescription of the type of elements that are required in a mitigation plan. In our code, we require wetland mitigation, and it's up to the environmental coordinator to ensure that there is a healthy ecosystem that is created. So this is just solidifying what we do in practice in the code for the Indian Brook Watershed Overlay District. As I mentioned before with the lawn chemicals, the Watershed Protection Overlay District is actually restricting uses within the buffer areas. Specifically, new impervious surfaces are restricted, construction of roads are restricted, removal of vegetation except for safety purposes, excavation and grading is restricted, additional lawn creation is restricted or not allowed, stormwater measures in the buffer are not allowed, mining, septic tank drain fields, agricultural livestock, de-icing, waste disposal, trash, and so on. Our wetlands code does not specifically, we exempt many of these same things in our wetlands code, but we do not prohibit the application of pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers. And those are the biggest differences in the overlay.
Kind of you.
So just to give you a sense, the town board is continuing the public hearing to August 13th. There were a lot of public comments. A lot of the folks who were opposed to the Sunshine Children's Home came out to speak against the overlay protection. Their biggest claim was that this was restricting their property values. In a close examination of comparison of the overlay protection to our existing codes, there is no impact on somebody's property value. We are residential zoned, so we do not allow the more intense land uses that are allowed perhaps in the Ossings or in Croton on the Hudson. The town board is waiting for the other municipalities to adopt the overlay. The town of Cortland has adopted the overlay, and Cortland on the Hudson have adopted the overlay protection district. The village and town of Austining are set to adopt the overlay in July or August of coming up. So by August 13th, the town board should have a good idea of where the other municipalities stand.
Okay, so our position on this is, obviously, we're not going to do it this evening, but whenever we find time to get together again, is we'll draw up a memo, send something off to the town board, recommendations, thoughts, ideas, concepts. In terms of if we like it, we don't like it, we think it should be expanded, the technical changes.
Change it.
Yep.
Any changes to this, whether it to be added or there's other changes, must be approved by New York State DEC.
Oh, so this is a New York DEC draft, basically, or approved draft?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, it's a draft that New York State DEC has approved for the 5 towns. So any substantive changes. If you wanna change, for example, instead of a slash, do a comma and or an or further define something, or even remove something, it's okay, but we need to send a track change version to DEC once the town board is ready to, if they adopt it.
Okay.
But expanding it is not gonna happen at this point.
Right. So any kind of changes would have to be ministerial, minor, not substantive, okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's not to say that you can't comment as a board if you want something changed. We can pursue that if the town board agrees to, but it is a much more lengthy process to have that change. For example, I received some comments from the public about defining wellhead. About clarification and referencing different documents. Those are all ministerial. But they are changes, and my intention is based on public comment received prior to August 13th and comments from yourself in Westchester County. I will do a track change version of the legislation for the town board so they can have a clear understanding of some of the changes that are being requested.
There was there are just questions that come up. So for example, at one point there's talk about salt, chloride salt treatments, can be done in a minimum amount necessary for public safety as determined by the highway department. But later on, there's a de-icing application of road salt as a restricted buffer use. I would presume that that's on private property, right? Is the intention on private sidewalks, private driveways, et cetera? So that's the kind of thing, it seems to me, should be spelled out a little bit more clearly. I don't know if that's considered substantive by the DEC, I have no idea.
Yeah, no, that is something that I would incorporate into a track change. And if the town board wanted that, then I would, I would forward it to DEC.
Okay.
That language is actually causing a lot of grief for the public.
I could see that, yep.
So if we wanted to remove that, we would also have to send that to DEC.
Right, okay. All right, any thoughts at this point, Jeff?
No.
Don't need to have thoughts at this point, we're only 2, so we're 3. So, Dick, any thoughts? Have you had a chance to look at it and look, consider it?
Dick, do you have any comments?
Do I have any what?
Any
Do you
comments?
have any thoughts or comments?
Not on that, no, I'd like to read it.
Okay, you have time.
Plenty of time. Good.
So actually, Sabrina, it's either in its current form or we can't change it, is what we're basically hearing, right? Either we approve it in its current form or we recommend it in its current form.
You're going to if you want to recommend changes, you can recommend changes.
But it's not gonna be an easy process to do.
Oh, it'll be a process, any change that we make, there will be a process, but don't let that hold you back.
Have the other towns adopted it as is, as far as you understand?
Groton-on-Hudson made some changes.
Or recommend?
Are those incorporated in here?
I'm sorry?
Are those incorporated in here?
In this
No.
draft?
Okay.
So
No.
those towns made changes and they just did it unilaterally without getting approval from the DEC?
They made the changes and then adopted the legislation and then sent it to DEC.
Okay.
At some point they'll have.
Again, their changes weren't substantive.
Right. Okay. Does our,
Subsequent adoption, right? Cause
Yeah.
they'll all have to match up.
I would think, it's supposed to be
Right.
one area.
We tend to take this more seriously than others.
Okay. Good. I mean, any thoughts from the public? You folks are here? Sure.
Actually, first I wanna say I read your, I'm exhausted. Nicole Richey, Overlook Road, I'm also chair of the Millwood West End Advisory Board. And I saw Steve Coleman's name up here before, but I thought he was gonna stay for the Indian Brook, because it was in 2008 that a committee was formed of the 5 towns, and I was on that committee. And Sabrina, I actually wanted to ask you a question because I know that the county, you were county planner at the I was
the county planner when we put this together,
Right.
yes.
in 2008. So what was the actual genesis of this? Like whose idea was it?
I think it was the towns wanting to protect their water supply. The Osmonds right now are going through a surface water protection planning process with the state to protect their drinking water. When I was with the county, we were working on different areas as funding became available to do non-point source water quality protection plans for those areas. Long Island Sound, we did watershed action plans for most of the Long Island Sound communities. In Westchester County, we did the East of Hudson, the Croton watershed plan that was part of the New York City memorandum of agreement to protect New York City's drinking water. And Croton-on-Hudson was kind of the one that was on the tail end of the Croton Gorge. And that was really driven by the municipalities requesting the county to put that plan together at that time.
We worked on the watershed, the New York City watershed thing with Sabrina when she was a teenager.
So in 2008, well, let me put it this way. I was very much in support of the overlay. Not just because I was on the committee in 2008, but because I feel strongly about protecting watersheds, drinking water, and in addition to that, the wildlife, the natural resources and that kind of thing. But after having heard the complaints and comments from the residents in the West End, I feel I have to really respect what they have to say. So, and as Sabrina said about the sunshine, they come with a lot of bad blood because of having been neglected by the town, the whole sunshine debacle, the town not having had a lot of input into the Hudson Ridge Wellness Center that's still going on. But so I guess what I wanna say is that Cortland did make some changes to the overlay, and as Sabrina said, it is a process, but it's not a huge process. It turns out that the planner for the town of Cortland was also on the committee with me in 2008. So I've had the chance to talk with him about the overlay, and they did make some changes, and as Sabrina pointed out, they're not huge changes, they had to be done within reason. with the permission of the DEC. So I do think that Sabrina, does the planning board have access to the specific complaints from the West End?
I don't believe so, I
Because
think they're
I'm-
submitted to the town board as part of the public hearing.
Cause I know the de-icing was really huge for people,
Yeah.
a lot of people, live up, I don't know how many, but very long
Yeah.
steep driveways. So that
Yeah.
would be one thing to be considered for sure. So I think that's, and I just had a question. Sabrina, when you're talking about things being restricted, that's mean they're not permitted?
Correct.
Some of
Prohibited.
those, some of those things might need to be looked at. And again, I don't know how this would affect property values. I would think it would increase, that to have that whole
It does not
area.
negatively affect property values.
Yeah, I would think it would increase it, in fact, to have, the area being protected. So those are my comments.
Okay.
I do think a few changes are called for. And the other thing, I just did wanna say, I read your testimonial in the Examiner about Tom Curley.
Well, and LDAT too,
What?
and LDAT as well.
And what?
LDOT,
LDOT
LDOT was
also.
the top.
Oh. Oh, right, okay. I know Tom Curley's been here a very, very long time. I was his son's teacher, so we go back a long, long time. But anyway, it was a very nice testimony.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just asked what's happening with the Amsterdam Park issue, if that gets shelved to another day.
It got shelved to another day, yes, unfortunately. It's kind of embarrassing frankly, but yeah.
Will there be a new written notice going out as to when that's gonna
Will
be
you,
addressed?
do you have to renotice the public hearing? I guess we do, or can?
No, we noticed it once. I was under the impression that if you're gonna you have the onus to follow what the board is doing,
Is it
once it's
being put on the
noticed.
July 16th agenda?
Yes, it will be on the July 16th agenda, yes.
And to get more information about that issue, just go on the website, or where do we go?
Yeah, and are there copies of
Am
the
I allowed
memos?
to call Dennis and ask Dennis questions? Or, I don't know the protocol.
No, that's.
That's always available. I think we have some memos that perhaps we can get copies of the memos that the staff has supplied to us.
Okay.
And I think that could help
Maybe I can
give you
get
some
them before I
information.
Well, everything is on the website, but I'm very happy to get you whatever I have.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Great. Sorry about whatever. Okay. No motion to close the meeting because we didn't have a meeting. It just seemed like a meeting.
Well, everyone have a lovely 4th.
Thanks.
Okay, happy 4th, everyone.
Sir?
Okay, Eric.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yep, I
Good night.